In the early days when I was starting out to speak, I was in California. And I'll never forget preparing my talk, and the maid was in the room fluffing up the pillows and the bed sheets and all of that, getting it ready. And she said, "So are you a lecturer?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "What are you speaking on today?" I said, "I'm dealing with a philosophical issue." She said, "That's good. I'm into metaphysics myself." I said, "Boy, where have I come? If the maid is into metaphysics, I'm going to be into some deadly metaphysicians in my audience today." That's the way it was. But after I finished speaking one of my talks, a professor came up with his students and he said to me, "You're from India. Your ancestors were Hindu, and you have become a Christian. What happened to you? Why did you do this?" I said, "What about you?" He said, I am a Hindu." I said, "You're an American. You're from the West. You had a different heritage. You've become a Hindu. What happened to you? You know." So we started. Isn't that interesting? He was picking me up for why I departed from my, quote, heritage. He never thought for a moment about his. So he said, "Here's what I want to talk to you about." He said, "Look, why don't you speak one night on why I'm not a Hindu? And I'll bring my whole philosophy class and they'll tear you apart at the end of it." I said, "That's supposed to be a welcoming invitation for me to do this, you know." I said, "Look, I don't want to do that." And the students are just on their toes listening to this. I said, "I don't want to do that." I said, "But I tell you what I'll do, sir. I will speak to you on why I am a Christian, and you bring your whole class, and I'm happy if they try to tear me apart." He said, No, I want you to. I said, "No, I'll speak on why I'm a Christian, because that'll give you the answers, why I'm not anything else, and you can try to tear me apart after that." So he came, and he sat there on that left with his arms folded like that, looking like a typical philosopher. As someone said, philosophers can easily become doodlers with words. And so there he was, doodling with words as I was trying to give my talk. And I could just see him putting his hand like this and just shaking his head and whispering to his students. He wasn't wanting to listen. So at the end of it, he came up to the front and he said, "You know what? I've just seen you do the greatest damage to pantheistic belief that I've ever seen any man do." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Why?" And he said, "You see," and he started, I said, "You know, sir, let me tell you something. For me to try to explain and defend to you what I have just said, I'm not interested in impressing your students. You may want to do that. I'm not interested in it. Let's go out and have lunch. And you and I will talk. I'll present my case. You try to tell me why it is I have done the damage that you think I've done, and we can carry on the discussion." He said, "Can I bring the professor of psychology with me?" I've never figured out why. Whether he wanted somebody to study both of us or not, I said, "All right, but I'm going to talk to you, not to him." I said, "I'm going to talk to you." He said, "That's fine." So we met. And he came and the discussion began. And here's what he said to me. He said, "Mr. Zacharias, you know there are only two kinds of logic. When somebody's opening statement is wrong, where do you go with it?" But I wasn't going to give away my hand that soon. I said, "Go ahead." He said, "You see, there are two kinds of logic. The first kind of logic is the either-or logic. It's called the law of non-contradiction." And he's drawing it out to me in our placemats. He's taking my placemat, the psychologist's placemat, his placemat, the neighbor's placemats. He's drawing all of this, giving names of thinkers and so on, going through the either-or law of non-contradiction. And he said, "This is the Western way of thinking." I said, "No, it's not." He said, "Yes, it is." I said, "No, it's not." He said, "Yes, it is." I said, "No, it's not." He said, how can you say no, it's not?" I said, "Carry on, keep moving." So he said, then there is a both-and set of propositions. It's not either this or that. It's the Hegelian dialectic. Take a thesis with its antithesis, spawns together a synthesis. Marx used that with an employer and an employee, put them together, find a classless society. They never ever show you a classless society, but they at least like to talk about it theoretically, that Marx had his dialectic. So it's either or and both and. And he said, "You know what you've actually done, Mr. Zacharias? When you were studying Hinduism, you talked about all of the contradictions that go on between the Vedas and the Gita and this and this and this." He said, "You know what you were doing? You were using a Western logical system of either or by which to judge an Eastern philosophy which submits to both and. The Eastern philosophers are not afraid of contradiction. They accept the contradiction. They are systemically contradictory. You should have judged it by an Eastern Eastern way of thinking, not a Western way of thinking. And he was waxing eloquent with this either or, both and. When I'm studying Hinduism, I should use the both and. I shouldn't be using either or. That was my logical blunder. Finally, I had no place on a placemat to do anything. He'd used them all up. So I pulled up the placemats where he'd done the either or and done the both and. I said, I have a question for you, sir. Are you telling me when I am studying pantheism, I either use the both and system of logic or nothing else? Is that right? Those of you who laugh can explain it to those who didn't laugh. Are you telling me that I either use the both and system of logic or nothing else? Is that right? You know what he said to me? This is one of those times where a camera would have been so handy. He said, that's quite amazing. The either or does seem to emerge, doesn't it? I said, yes, sir. In fact, I've got some shocking news for you. Even in India, we look both ways before we cross the street. It is either the bus or me, not both of us. Do you know what the professor of psychology said? He said, I think we should leave now. This discussion is over. Do you see what he was doing? He was using the either or with which to prove the both and. If both and was right, why was he not allowing me to use both the either or and the both and? He was eliminating me on the basis of a presumption that the either or, the laws of logic, do apply to reality. And what he'd absolutely missed, completely missed, you take Shankara, the leading Indian exponent on the Vedas, leading Indian philosopher, Shankaracharya. His entire way of debate was in using the law of non-contradiction and trying to decimate the opposition if it had any systemically contradictory ideas. Gautama Buddha was born a Hindu. He left Hinduism and went into Buddhism because he denied a couple of fundamental Hindu precepts. He was using the law of non-contradiction. Islamic scholars are committed to the law of non-contradiction. To say Easterners don't believe in the law of non-contradiction is to caricature Eastern philosophy. Ah, yes, they do go with contradictions, but not if they were to submit to the primary documents from which they actually glean some of their philosophy. And ladies and gentlemen, if you live a life of ethical contradiction, it will burn you. It will burn you. It was Alexander Solzhenitsyn who said, he said, between good and evil there is an irreconcilable contradiction, like the 2 points of an electric current. You cross them and you will burn, he said, and we in the Soviet Union have lost that distinction between good and evil. He said this at Harvard University. We've lost now the definition of the sacredness of the body. We've lost it. We've lost the definition of the sacredness of a marital vow. We've lost the definition of the sacredness of filing your taxes with honor and truth. We've lost all of these ideas with a sheer pragmatism that has told us pluralization has ultimately led to systemic schizophrenia. Andrew Fletcher, the Scottish political activist, wrote the poem, wrote the words, let me write the songs of a nation, I don't care who writes its laws. Let me write the songs of a nation, I don't care who writes its laws. Our rock musicians, our songwriters are seeing the hollowness of which we are living with now. And so one of the King Crimson rock group writes this, Cat's Foot, Iron Claw, neurosurgeons scream for more from paranoias, poison door, 21st century schizoid man, blood rack, barbed wire, politicians, funeral pyre, innocents raped with napalm fire, 21st century schizoid man, death seed, blind man's greed, poet starving, children bleed, nothing he's got, he really needs, 21st century schizoid man. Now notice what he said, they say, the walls on which the prophets wrote is cracking at the seams. Upon the instruments of death the sunlight brightly gleams. Will no one lay the laurel wreath as silence drowns the screams? Between the iron gates of fate the seeds of time are sown and watered by the deeds of those who know and who are known. Knowledge is is a deadly friend when no one sets the rules. The fate of all mankind, I see, is in the hands of fools. Confusion will be my epitaph as I crawl a cracked and broken path. If we make it, we can all sit back and laugh, but I'm afraid tomorrow I'll be crying.